The security team arrived 6 minutes later, which frankly was slower than I expected given the noise Kravik made hitting the deck. For officers, 2 Viridians and 2 KRYLL, all armed with shock batons and looking ready for a full-scale riot. What they found was Marcus Webb, still scanning cargo containers like it was just another Tuesday, and Kravik, still sprawled on the deck, wheezing like a punctured air recycler. What happened here? The lead officer, a Viridian named Torix, looked between the human and the Thorexian with obvious confusion. His antenna twitched nervously. Before anyone could answer, Kravik pushed himself up on 2 of his arms. His crest had faded to a sickly gray color. Nothing. Training accident. I slipped. Every being in that loading bay went very still. Torix's antenna twitched faster. You slipped? You're telling me you, Kravik, station security, just slipped and cracked the deck plating? That's right. Kravik wouldn't look at Marcus. Wouldn't look at anyone, really. Wet floor. Very dangerous. Should probably file a maintenance report. I watched this exchange with growing amazement. The bully of Tertius, 9, the being who'd terrorized workers for 3 cycles, was lying to protect the human who'd just dismantled him like a cheap servo motor. Torix clearly didn't believe it, but what could he do? No complaint, no victim, no case. He glanced at Marcus. You witnessed this training accident, human? Marcus didn't even pause his scanning. Sorry, I was focused on my work. Didn't see a thing. But you know what they say, safety first. Someone should really look into those wet floors. The absolute deadpan delivery made one of the KRYLL officers cough to hide what might have been a laugh. Torix stared at Marcus for a long moment, then at Kravik, then back again. Right? Well, Kravik, perhaps you should report to medical. Make sure your training accident didn't cause any serious damage. Good idea. Kravik hauled himself to his feet, moving like every joint hurt, which they probably did. I'll do that. Immediately, he limped toward the exit, and I swear on my homeworld's 3 moons, he gave Marcus the widest possible space as he passed. The human didn't acknowledge him at all, just kept working. After security left, the loading bay slowly came back to life. Workers returned to their tasks, but the atmosphere had changed. Something fundamental had shifted in the station's social order. I should have left it alone, gone back to my own duties as a freight coordinator. But curiosity is a trait my species values highly, sometimes to our detriment. I approached Marcus, keeping my body language respectful, non-threatening. That was impressive, I said quietly. Marcus looked up, and for the first time, I saw something other than neutrality in his expression. A slight smile, maybe. Hard to read human faces sometimes. Thanks. You're Velis, right? Freight coordination. You know my name? I make it a point to know who I'm working with. Never know when you might need a favor. He went back to his scanner. Besides, you're one of the few people on this station who doesn't treat dock workers like we're disposable. That hit harder than I expected. What you did to Kravik, where did you learn that? Earth. Military service, years back. Turns out when you're the species that invented 100 different ways to hurt each other, you get pretty good at it. He paused, seemed to consider something. But here's the thing nobody tells you about fighting. The best fighters aren't the biggest or the strongest. They're the ones who stay calm, who think, who understand leverage and anatomy and timing. Kravik outweighed you by what? 200 kilos. At least. Didn't matter. He was angry, sloppy, predictable. Anger makes you stupid. I wasn't angry at all. Marcus finished scanning a container and moved to the next one. I was just doing math. Math. Force vectors, joint angles, structural weak points. Every species has them. Thorexians might look tough, but their respiratory system is vulnerable, and their nerve clusters are positioned in very specific locations. You hit them right, and size doesn't mean anything. The casual way he discussed dismantling beings twice his size was somehow more unsettling than the actual fight had been. You could have seriously hurt him, I said. Or worse. Yeah. Marcus met my eyes again. But I didn't. Because unlike Kravik, I don't enjoy hurting people. I just refuse to be bullied. There's a difference. Over the next few hours, word spread through Tertius, 9 like a virus through a ship's ventilation system. The human in loading bay 7 had put Kravik down. Details got exaggerated, of course. By the time the story reached the upper decks, Marcus had apparently thrown Kravik through a bulkhead and juggled 3 security officers. But the core truth remained, And that truth changed everything. Humans, we learned, were not soft, not weak, not prey. They were something far more dangerous. A species that looked harmless right up until the moment they decided you were a threat. And when that happened, all that death world evolution, all those millennia of surviving everything their planet threw at them, came rushing to the surface. Kravik never bothered another worker after that day. In fact, he transferred to a different station within the month. Rumor was he requested assignment somewhere with no human population. As for Marcus Webb, he finished his shift, clocked out at exactly the regulation time, and went home to his quarters. Just another day at work. But in the bars and rest areas, in the mess halls and crew quarters, beings talked. They shared stories about humans they'd met, worked with, underestimated. And a new understanding began to spread through the galactic community. These hairless apes from that little blue world, they weren't just survivors. They were the kind of species that thrived in environments that would kill most others. They were patient, adaptable, and absolutely terrifying when pushed. And the smartest thing any being could do was treat them with respect. Because you really didn't want to find out what happened when you tried to bully a human. Trust me on that one. I was there, and I'll never forget the look in Marcus Webb's eyes as he stood over Kravik. Not rage, not triumph, just simple, calm certainty. The certainty of a predator that knows exactly what it's capable of. The end. The mistake began when Kravik decided humans were soft. I was there, standing 3 meters away in the loading bay of Station Tertius 9, watching this absolute disaster prepare to unfold. My translator chip buzzed against my skull as Kravik's growl echoed across the cargo platform. You, pink thing, move faster, or I'll toss you out the airlock myself. The human didn't even look up, just kept scanning containers with that handheld device, methodical as a machine. His name badge read, Marcus Webb, and he wore the standard gray coveralls of a dock worker. Nothing special, nothing threatening, just another employee doing his job. That should have been Kravik's first warning. See, Kravik was a Thorexian, 2.5 meters of scaled muscle, with 4 arms that could bend duralloy beams like they were made of clay. He'd been station security for 3 cycles, and he'd built quite the reputation. Bribes, extortion, the occasional accidental spacing of someone who annoyed him. Management looked the other way because, well, who wants to discipline a walking tank? But humans? Kravik had only seen them in the database. Deathworld species, sure, but they looked so fragile. No natural armor, no claws, no venom sacs. Just soft skin and those weird, expressive faces. Did you hear me, monkey? Kravik stomped closer, his boots making the deck plates ring. I said move. Marcus finally glanced up. His face was completely neutral. Calm, even. I'm going as fast as regulations allow. If you have a problem with that, file a complaint with my supervisor. Oh, stars above. The human's voice was flat, professional, utterly unbothered. Kravik's crest flared purple with rage. Nobody talked to him like that. Nobody. In 2 strides, he closed the distance and grabbed Marcus by the front of his coveralls, lifting him clean off the deck. Listen here, you little sack of meat. I don't care about your regulations. When I give an order, you jump. Here's the thing about humans that most species don't understand until it's too late. They're not just from a death world. They're the apex predator of that death world. And apex predators? They don't panic when something threatens them. They calculate. Marcus didn't struggle, didn't shout. His hands didn't even grab at Kravik's arms. He just hung there, looking the Thorexian dead in the eyes, and said, "Put me down." Or what? Kravik laughed, shaking him like a doll. Or you'll regret it. The human's voice hadn't changed. Still flat, still calm. But something in those words made my spine ridges shiver. Kravik threw him. Just straight up hurled Marcus across the loading bay like a piece of garbage. The human hit a stack of cargo containers with a sound that made me wince, then crumpled to the deck. For a moment, nothing moved. The entire bay had gone silent. Other workers, both human and alien, had stopped to watch. I saw a Viridian maintenance tech slowly backing toward an exit. Then Marcus stood up. Not slowly, not struggling. He just stood, rolled his shoulders once, twice, touched his ribs gingerly, checking for breaks. A thin line of that red human blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He wiped it away with the back of his hand and looked at it, almost curious. Okay, Marcus said quietly. I gave you a chance. Kravik charged, all 4 arms reaching, claws extended, ready to tear this impudent creature apart. He'd killed beings tougher than humans before. This would be easy, quick, and everyone would learn not to disrespect him. What happened next? I'm still not entirely sure I can explain properly. Marcus didn't run, didn't even really dodge. He stepped inside Kravik's reach, moving with a speed that seemed impossible for someone who'd just been thrown into solid metal. One of Kravik's arms swung toward his head. Marcus ducked under it, grabbed the limb, and did something with his hips and shoulders that I couldn't quite follow. Kravik, all 2.5 meters and 300 kilos of him, flipped through the air and crashed onto his back hard enough to crack the deck plating. The Phyrexian's breath exploded out in a wheeze. Before he could recover, Marcus was on him. Not with claws or weapons, just those soft human hands. One struck Kravik's throat, precisely, efficiently. Another hammered into a nerve cluster below his primary shoulder joint. A knee dropped onto the Phyrexian's center chest plate, right where 3 major blood vessels converged. Kravik tried to grab him, all 4 arms flailing. Marcus twisted, shifted, stayed just out of reach while delivering strike after calculated strike. It wasn't wild. It wasn't angry. It was methodical, like he was dismantling a machine, finding every weak point and exploiting it with surgical precision. Stop! Stop! Kravik finally managed to gasp. Marcus paused, one fist raised. Are we done here? Yes. Yes, we're done. The human stood, brushed off his coveralls, and walked back to his cargo scanner like nothing had happened. Picked it up, checked it for damage, and resumed his inventory count. Kravik lay there, struggling to breathe, all 4 arms trembling. And I realized something terrifying. Marcus hadn't been trying to kill him. If he'd wanted Kravik dead, the Phyrexian would be dead. Every strike had been controlled, measured, designed to incapacitate without causing permanent damage. The human had shown mercy, which meant he'd been in complete control the entire time. I watched Marcus work for another few minutes, my mind racing. Station security would arrive soon, drawn by the commotion. There would be questions, investigations. But looking around at the other witnesses, I saw the same expression on every face. Nobody was going to report what really happened here. Nobody was going to contradict whatever story Marcus told. Because we'd all just learned the same lesson Kravik had. You don't bully a human. Not unless you want to find out exactly why their species climbed to the top of a world that actively tried to kill them every single day. So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.